Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a granular look at a highly complex and deeply tragic case.
Hmm.
It's a story that involves an FBI 10 most wanted fugitive, the disappearance of her 5-year-old son, and then this massive international manhunt that ends thousands of miles from where it started.
It really is, and it's a case that forces you to look at so many different angles. The limitations of state oversight, for one. Also, the evolving nature of forensic evidence, especially in a capital murder case without a body.
Right.
Our mission today is to really trace that timeline, dissect the key pieces of evidence that led to that indictment, and to analyze just how fast the capture ultimately happened.
And the speed is what's so stunning here. We're focused on Cindy Rodriguez Singh. On July 1st, 2025, she becomes FBI Most Wanted Fugitive number 537.
For capital murder and an unlawful flight.
Exactly. But the really wild part is that the global pursuit, it all ends just 7 weeks later. She's apprehended in New Delhi, India on August 20, 2025.
It's an incredible turnaround.
And now she's back in Texas, held on a staggering $10 million bond. That number alone, it just signals how seriously authorities are taking this.
Oh, absolutely. When you see a bond set that high, it's a clear statement from the court. They see her as an extreme flight risk, which, I mean, makes sense,
We
right?
could prove she could do it.
Exactly. She's demonstrated she has the means and the will to flee the country. So to really grasp all of this, we have to start with the victim, Noel Rodriguez Alvarez, and the deeply troubling environment he was in.
Let's unpack his short life. Noel was born prematurely back in February 2017, and our sources say he dealt with some significant disabilities right from the start.
Yeah, multiple physical and developmental challenges. He was visually impaired. He had a limp, a speech delay, even chronic lung disease that required regular treatment.
And a condition called esotropia.
Right, where one or both eyes turn inward. The bottom line is this was a child who needed constant specialized care.
And that need for care is what makes the allegations of abuse just so much more heartbreaking.
It really does. The report suggests that his mother, Rodriguez Singh, didn't just fail to provide that care. She actively shunned him.
Shunned him.
Yeah. The thing that really stands out on the records is this claim she allegedly made that Noel was, quote, evil or possessed by a demon.
Wow.
And that, that elevates this from what you might think of as neglect to something potentially driven by this really deep-seated irrational hatred.
That context, it just changes how you look at the specific abuse allegations, doesn't it?
Completely. The sources detail these awful instances where she would allegedly deprive him of food and water, reportedly just to avoid changing his diaper.
That's horrifying.
And there are these specific accounts that she would beat him with a set of keys if she caught him trying to drink water.
Which brings us to a really crucial point about systemic failures, because this family was known to authorities.
Well known. Cindy Rodriguez Singh already had a criminal record. She had a 2020 conviction for a repeat DWI after crashing her car with 2 of her children inside.
And for that, she got 10 years of probation.
10 years probation. So she was literally under state supervision during this period.
At the time of his disappearance.
Precisely. And it wasn't just the probation. Between 2020 and late 2021, 3 of her kids, including Noel, had been removed from her custody.
They were placed in foster care.
For a time, yes, before they were returned to her. The other 3 siblings were with their grandparents. So there's this history of intervention.
It raises a huge question then. If CPS had already removed and then returned Noel, was there a failure to see how bad things were getting? Especially with her framing the child as evil.
It certainly suggests there were, let's say, repeated opportunities for intervention that just didn't prevent the final tragic outcome.
Okay, so let's move into the timeline of the disappearance itself, because the mother's behavior becomes just immediately erratic.
Yes. The period leading up to the family's flight is absolutely key for the prosecution. Noel was last seen alive in mid-October of 2022.
Where was that?
It was at a hospital, actually, where his twin sisters were being born. And even then, the notes from that sighting indicated he appeared unhealthy and malnourished. And this is important. His doctor's appointments had already lapsed, starting way back in July 2022. And he was old enough for school, but had never been enrolled.
And during this period, Rodriguez Singh was, it seems, actively trying to cover things up. There's that very strange detail about her asking an acquaintance to borrow their child for a medical visit.
Right. And investigators believe that was a deliberate attempt to sort of maintain the appearance of having all her children with her.
To keep up the facade.
Exactly. Maybe to get benefits or just to stop people from asking questions. She was clearly preparing for his absence. We know this for a fact.
How so?
Because between November 1st and 2nd, 2022, she applied for passports for 6 of her children. And she explicitly did not include Noel in those applications.
That is just chilling. That's premeditation for the escape right there.
It's hard to see it any other way. And then you have the completely contradictory stories she started telling people about where Noel was.
Yeah, they were all over the place.
They were. But they all served one purpose: deception. First, she tells her mother and brother this incredible story that she sold her son to some woman in a Fiesta Mart parking lot.
Which nobody believed.
Of course not. It sounds like a desperate lie. But then, when the Everman police finally show up to do a welfare check in March 2023, she tells them something completely different.
What was that story?
She claimed Noel was now living in Mexico with relatives of his father who had been deported.
So you have these two wildly different narratives, selling him versus sending him to Mexico. From an investigative standpoint, what does that do?
Well, what it does is it establishes a clear pattern of lying to conceal the truth. Neither story could be backed up. So by the time police showed up for that welfare check on March 20th, they were already highly suspicious.
And the family's reaction to that police visit was, well, it was their final move.
It was a very cold, calculated escape. Just 2 days after that welfare check, on March 22nd, Noel's stepfather, Arshdeep Singh, stole $10,000 from his job.
Okay.
He immediately deposits $8,000 of it into a bank account. And that same day, the entire family, Cindy, Arshdeep, and the other 6 children, they drive straight to DFW Airport.
And they're gone.
Gone. They board a flight to Istanbul, Turkey. Later, authorities figured out their likely final destination was India based on internet searches they'd done beforehand.
The coordination is just undeniable. Steal the money, use it immediately for an international flight, all triggered by one welfare check.
Right. An Amber Alert was issued on March 25th, felony warrants a few days later, but by then, you're right, they were long gone.
So the focus of the investigation had to shift, didn't it? From finding a missing child to building a potential murder case.
It did. And this is where the case gets really interesting, because it relies almost entirely on trace evidence.
So tell us about that. What did they find at the home in Evermen that was strong enough for a capital murder charge, even without a body?
They found 3 really critical pieces of evidence. First, they learned that right before the flight, Rodriguez Singh had paid someone to build a new concrete patio at the house.
No, concrete patio. Okay.
Second, her husband threw out a large carpet that had been in a shed on the property, a shed that the couple later had demolished.
And they found the carpet.
They did. And when forensics analyzed it, they found traces of human remains.
That's the pivotal moment, isn't it? Because in modern investigations, that kind of trace evidence from a carpet can carry the same legal weight as recovering a body.
Precisely. We're not talking about a large quantity of remains, obviously. We're talking about sophisticated analysis of residue, but it was enough to meet the legal threshold.
And there was a third piece of evidence.
Yes, and it reinforced the carpet. Sniffer dogs, the ones specialized in detecting human remains, they alerted multiple times right at the spot where that new concrete patio had been poured.
So the theory was that Noel's body had been there, either under the patio or maybe in that shed area before it was moved.
That's the strong suggestion, yes. And despite them demolishing the patio and searching everywhere, Noel's body was never found. But that cumulative evidence was enough.
It was enough for the indictment.
On October 30, 2023, a grand jury indicted Cindy Rodriguez Singh for capital murder, injury to a child, and abandoning a child.
This moves the case into the highest tier of criminal offenses. And this is where the story takes another dark turn, with police bringing up this alleged ritualistic connection.
Yes, the Santa Muerte connection.
Mm-hmm.
Government police noted that Cindy heavily idolized this figure. The police chief said the iconography was, quote, everywhere within the shed, the home, on her car.
How did they frame that finding? Because it can be a controversial subject.
Well, the chief framed it by saying Santa Muerte is often seen as a patron saint that offers protection to people involved in illicit activities like cartels.
So how did police use that to shape the narrative of the crime? This wasn't just for sensationalism.
No, not at all. They were using it to frame her potential motive and her state of mind. If you take her alleged belief that Noel was evil, and you combine it with her seeking protection from a figure like Santa Muerte,
I see.
investigators could argue this supports the idea that the murder was premeditated, maybe even ritualistic.
Yeah.
It suggests she felt she needed some kind of, divine or occult help to either commit the act or get away with it.
Which provides context for her being such an extreme flight risk.
Exactly. And that feeling of desperation, that paranoia, it definitely fueled the international manhunt, which brings us to her landing on the FBI's 10 most wanted list.
A designation that happened on July 1st, 2025. That's a huge step.
It's a critical step. It signals that domestic leads are dry, the fugitive is international, and the federal government is now dedicating its most powerful resources to the capture, working with partners like Interpol.
And those resources paid off so fast. 7 weeks is just an incredibly short time for an international fugitive on that list.
It is a remarkable turnaround. She was apprehended in New Delhi, India, in August 2025 by local authorities working with the U.S. You have to appreciate the logistics here. Extradition from a country like India isn't simple. It requires intense diplomatic cooperation and really an ironclad package of evidence to get them to release the subject back to the U.S., especially for a capital murder charge. So she's captured. It's a huge win for law enforcement. But what happens now in the trial phase? What are the biggest challenges prosecutors face trying to prove capital murder without a body? The challenge is formidable. They have to rely almost completely on circumstantial evidence. They'll bring in forensic experts to testify about the human remains on the carpet. They will use the extreme nature of the flight as evidence of a guilty conscience.
And the contradictory stories.
Absolutely. The stories about selling him or sending him to Mexico will be used to show her intent to conceal the crime. But the defense will, without a doubt, challenge the identity of those remains and the very definition of murder since the body itself is missing.
So the whole case hinges on expert analysis, not on something a jury can see with their own eyes.
That's right. The forensic analysis is going to be the star witness in this trial.
While all this incredibly difficult legal stuff unfolds, the community in Everman, Texas has taken steps to make sure Noel's memory isn't just about this tragedy.
Yeah, and this is, for me, maybe the most profound part of the story. In May 2023, the Everman City Council decided to name a new, inclusive playground after him.
One designed for children with disabilities.
Exactly. To give other kids facing similar challenges a dedicated space. It's in Clyde Pittman Park.
And they made a very specific, a very symbolic change to his name for this honor.
They did. They named it the Noel Angel Alvarez Playground. The City Council explicitly replaced his middle name, Rodriguez, with Angel.
To disassociate the gesture from his mother.
To disassociate it from Cindy. To make sure this positive legacy belonged only to the child, not to the family name tied to the crime. It opened in November 2023. It's a really powerful act of community remembrance.
So when you pull it all together, what do we have? We've traced a case that's defined by extreme vulnerability, systemic failures, a calculated international flight, and a capital murder charge built entirely on trace evidence.
It's a pursuit that required global collaboration, all focused on a very localized, heartbreaking crime.
This case is going to set precedents, isn't it?
I think so, yeah. Regarding the weight of forensic trace evidence in a no-body murder trial. But if we connect it back to that bigger picture, to that playground, I have a final thought for you.
Okay.
Considering the community's intense, deliberate effort to rename that park, to build something positive and lasting called the Noel Angel Alvarez Playground, what does that act of collective remembrance tell us about how we, as a society, try to reclaim memory from the darkness of a tragedy like this?
A heavy but necessary thought to carry forward. The outcome of the trial will be closely watched, but the impact of Noel's short life and the community's response to it has already left its mark. Thank you for diving deep with us into these sources.